Adolf Hitler desired to rule the world. He had global design. Secondly, he decided that he would destroy the Jews. This puts him right at the heart and soul of all anti-God, anti-Christ efforts, attempted to destroy the Jews in order to destroy the purposes of God through them.
In 1967, the dictator of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, announced his plan, in his words, to destroy Israel. He placed Egyptian troops on Israel's border, and armies of surrounding Arab countries were also mobilized to attack.
Throughout history, we have seen this hatred and animosity towards Israel going all the way back to biblical time. And even in modern day, we can see the same animosity towards the Jews from surrounding nations that just want to snuff them out and obliterate them from the surface of the earth if they could.
Quoting Hitler, he said, "There is another species of humanity which doesn't deserve the name humanity, left as a relic of some baser form of life, created along with hideous crawling creatures, gypsies, Negroes, and Jews." Hitler goes on, "They are as far removed from us as animals are from humans. I do not mean I look on Jews as animals. They are much further removed from animals than we are. They are creatures outside nature," end quote. And so he butchered 6 million of them and wanted to kill every Jew on the earth. He was demon-possessed at the most profound level. He is a prime example of the coming Antichrist who will be Satan-filled.
You see the babies, the mother, the fathers in their bedrooms, in the protection rooms, and how the terrorists kill them. It's not a war. It's not a battlefield. It's a massacre. It's a terror activity.
As they've been walking through these different houses, these different communities, babies, their heads cut off. That's what they said. Gunned down. Families completely gunned down in their beds.
It's something that I never saw in my life. It's something that we used to imagine as our grandfather and grandmother in the pogrom in Europe and other places.
You can see some of these soldiers right now comforting each other. Many of them reserves who jumped into action, leaving their own families behind as well, not knowing the sheer horror that they were about to come to. They say they've never experienced anything like this. This is nothing that anyone could have even.
They must have shed their humanity, and what's left is something inhuman. To see baby carriages with bullet holes in them and blood. Who goes up to a baby, kills a baby?
But as this is going on, your colleague Rashida Tlaib is with quite pride displaying the Palestinian flag outside of her office. How does something like this happen?
They're Arab Nazis. That's what the Palestinians are. Thank you. They live alongside Jews, not for the purpose of living alongside them in peace, but living alongside them just long enough to plan. Can I kidnap children? Can I execute the elderly? Can I execute the innocent? Not say military to military, but target civilians specifically. They should be looked at no differently than that, and they might as well put a swastika in the middle of the black and the red and the green, and that's essentially what she's displaying.
I mean, let's just be crystal clear. This is an act of terrorism that we saw at the weekend, the worst since 9/11, one of the worst terror attacks in modern history. And yet you have mainstream media, the BBC in Britain, refusing to describe Hamas as terrorists. They call them militants. Even John Simpson, one of their senior foreign correspondents and editors, said it's not a journalist's role to call groups like Hamas terrorists. He says calling someone a terrorist means you're taking sides and ceasing to treat the situation with due impartiality. The BBC's job is to place the facts before its audience and let them decide what they think honestly and without ranting. Sorry, it's not what we do, but I don't think it's about ranting to describe acts of terror as being committed by terrorists. And the New York Times apparently today actually changed the wording of a story they put online and changed the word Hamas terrorists to Hamas gunmen, as if they're almost terrified, literally, I mean, how ironic, of using the word terrorist. But what is it about mainstream media? Two huge examples of it, New York Times and the BBC.
Free, free, free Palestine! Free, free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea! From the river to the sea! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down! Shut it down!
When I did my graduate studies at the Middle East Institute at Columbia University's School of International Affairs, I took many courses on the question of the Middle East conflict. Semester after semester, we studied the Middle East conflict as if it was the most complex conflict in the world, when in fact, it is probably the easiest conflict in the world to explain. It may be the hardest to solve, but it is the easiest to explain. In a nutshell, it's this. One side wants the other side dead. Israel wants to exist as a Jewish state and to live in peace. Israel also recognizes the right of Palestinians to have their own state and to live in peace. The problem, however, is that most Palestinians and many other Muslims and Arabs do not recognize the right of the Jewish state of Israel to exist. This has been true since 1947, when the United Nations voted to divide the land called Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. The Jews accepted the United Nations partition, but no Arab or any other Muslim country accepted it. When British rule ended on May 15, 1948, the armies of all the neighboring Arab states, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Transjordan, and Egypt, attacked the one-day-old state of Israel in order to destroy it. But to the world's surprise, the little Jewish state survived. Then it happened again. In 1967, the dictator of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, announced his plan, in his words, to destroy Israel. He placed Egyptian troops on Israel's border, and armies of surrounding Arab countries were also mobilized to attack. However, Israel preemptively attacked Egypt and Syria. Israel did not attack Jordan and begged Jordan's king not to join the war. But he did. And only because of that did Israel take control of Jordanian land, specifically the West Bank of the Jordan River. Shortly after the war, the Arab states went to Khartoum, Sudan, and announced their famous three no's: no recognition, no peace, and no negotiations. What was Israel supposed to do? Well, one thing Israel did a little more than a decade later in 1978 was to give the entire Sinai Peninsula, an area of land bigger than Israel itself and with oil, back to Egypt, because Egypt, under new leadership, signed a peace agreement with Israel. So Israel gave land for the promise of peace with Egypt, and it has always been willing to do the same thing with the Palestinians. All the Palestinians have ever had to do is recognize Israel as a Jewish state and promise to live in peace with it. But when Israel has proposed trading land for peace, as it did in 2000, when it agreed to give the Palestinians a sovereign state in more than 95% of the West Bank and all of Gaza, the Palestinian leadership rejected the offer and instead responded by sending waves of suicide terrorists into Israel. Meanwhile, Palestinian radio, television, and school curricula remain filled with glorification of terrorists, demonization of Jews, and the daily repeated message that Israel should cease to exist. So it's not hard to explain the Middle East dispute. One side wants the other dead. The motto of Hamas, the Palestinian rulers of Gaza, is, "We love death as much as the Jews love life." There are 22 Arab states in the world, stretching from the Atlantic Ocean to the Indian Ocean. There is one Jewish state in the world, and it is about the size of New Jersey. In fact, tiny El Salvador is larger than Israel. Finally, think about these two questions. If tomorrow Israel laid down its arms and announced, "We will fight no more," what would happen? And if the Arab countries around Israel laid down their arms and announced, "We will fight no more," what would happen? In the first case, there would be an immediate destruction of the state of Israel and mass murder of its Jewish population. In the second case, there would be peace the next day. As I said at the outset, it is a simple problem to describe. One side wants the other dead. And if it didn't, there would be peace. Please remember this. There has never been a state in the geographic area known as Palestine that was not Jewish. Israel is the third Jewish state to exist in that area. There was never an Arab state, never a Palestinian state, never a Muslim or any other state. That's the issue. Why can't the one Jewish state the size of El Salvador be allowed to exist? That is the Middle East problem.
Well, there are several ways in which you can look at it, and all of them are important. First of all, you have to respond by saying false religion is capable of doing the most horrendous things possible. False religion is behind all the slaughter. You know, if we have a mass murderer in America, it takes years to catch them because they hide it. They bury the bodies. But if your murderers are tied to a false religion, you make videos of them, you parade them, you show them off. So it's an indication that false religion is the most damnable of all things in the world, because it's Satan at his worst, and that's what Romans 1 says. So you're seeing the horror of false religion and why you can never make a truce with false religion.